Hello, hello. Check, mic check. Okay, cool.
Well, they're showing a video on another one. Pretty good.
Man,
I know.
Okay, I just want to say that these chairs are coming apart. It was not me. Things are just
Sometimes
falling off
intimate
of
groups are better.
it. Where do you want to be?
I think right here should be okay.
I'm gonna just hold the mic right.
And you can get the chair. Yeah, just sit right here.
Are you able to see the slide? Are you gonna be able to see what you're speaking on? You can move some out if you want to do that.
Think.
Yeah, I mean, if we were to like sit kind of over there, I mean, a circle, the beauty part is there's no front or back or side of a circle. Anywhere that's more comfortable.
Yeah, and maybe on
Oh,
that
yeah,
side.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so you
Okay.
can see,
Yeah.
but then the mic thing, I don't know.
No, it should be fine.
I think we're gonna be passing them, I think,
Yeah,
maybe on
Oh, no,
Facebook.
it's a wire.
it's wired.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Alright.
Yeah, we'll make it work. We
And
will
maybe
make
if it
it
is
work.
an intimate group, maybe we don't need a mic, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll just talk.
I can be super
We tend to
loud.
be a loud group.
It's a serious topic that we try to approach with some love. Sometimes you have to laugh when you see these things, right?
Mouse? No, I
No.
have one.
We don't have a lot of
Yeah,
that's
so
what they're asking.
I grabbed mine.
So use it being over here. Presentation. I'll go ask facility supervisor.
Make it
They have a
work.
handle on it.
Flexibility is key.
I am a
All sorts of
troubleshooting phenom.
with technology, great, because I'm sure not.
I'll handle the mouse.
Very good.
I will volunteer. Yeah, that'll work.
Well, we're trying to get wireless.
We've got 4 minutes. See if anybody else trickles in.
Everyone here gets bonus points for me.
Is everyone enjoying the conference? This is my first event at this conference. And my first time.
Well, there is no better place, in my opinion, than Desert Willow because they have good food.
Good
And then in the
dessert.
afternoon, they give you a mid-afternoon snack, and I mean breakfast,
The
and
soda's there all day.
sodas all day, coffee all day, waters all day. If there's a conference happening at Desert Willow, then I'm gonna try to come. So, because I like the food.
The captioning's working, that's exciting.
Well, I can see. And I mean, is it work that us panelists are spread out? I mean, it keeps it.
I feel like it's good if we're spaced. The whole point is to not have a power dynamic at risk, but we're all on top of each other.
Yeah. I wanted to be on equal.
people that I only know from the computer. Hi,
Hello.
Gina.
Hi Gina, I'm Emery Longtree. Nice to meet you.
We were on a call together.
Were we?
the other week, I think.
Okay, we probably were. Yeah.
Hi, Memory, I'm Melanie.
Hi Melanie. Hi, nice to meet you. It's entirely possible I am on a lot of calls.
You were like at a place doing another thing.
A retreat, we were at the
Yeah.
retreat.
Oh, yes, that's right. Somebody asked me this morning, during the keynote if this was, somebody was typing, and I thought it was an app that was catching the closed captioning.
I think it's electronic, yes, electronic.
Yeah.
I don't think you type it.
I know, I was like, I don't see anybody,
Yeah.
you know.
I have to say, that's pretty good.
It is really
Closed
good.
captioning, normally it's terrible. That's
Right.
what's up.
They're getting pretty sophisticated, because like the video that I
Some
created
kind of
for
a
the website,
technology
that
that
I
will
told it to
capture
add
what you're
closed
saying and
captioning, and I
put it
only
in
had to
Word.
go in and fix like a few
Closed
things,
captioning
like
technology. But the
just
lady
there was
was
a
asking
couple
me
of
if there was
words
somebody
that it didn't
typing,
understand,
and I was
and
like, I don't
then
see anybody
some
furiously
spacing
typing.
like after periods
So,
that weren't in there.
That's good, because I know
Yes.
when you do closed captioning, it's still just horrible.
Yeah, it's bad.
So
Like,
bad.
videos I have to go back and like retype the whole thing. So, I need to figure out.
We have the same issue with the IOCs, because we started doing that in our Google Meets, when they have their monthly meetings.
Yeah.
We record and have the transcripts. And if people are talking at the same time, oh, forget it. It gets very confused. But because we're on Zoom, it does tell you who's talking, which makes it nice too, for the minutes.
Yep, I think we're good. Yep, 1:30.
To breathe for a minute. Because you've been running all day.
So don't forget that you're getting vaccines.
I got mine. I got the 4th booster and I got a flu.
Yeah. These are
Just a bit young for the shingles vaccine though. Just say that out loud.
So let you guys
Just a bit young for it, so you know.
So do we need a speaker?
So they're gonna, give us a wireless mic. I think they're figuring it out.
Hello? Hello?
Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and Petu and Happy Wash Day. Today is a very good day, and really happy to be here to moderate this talking circle with all of our guest speakers, panel presenters, and our audience. So thank you for being here, joining us this afternoon. You know, it's a sensitive topic, and I'd like for everybody to introduce themselves just by your first name. That would work too. So I'm Kimberly Yellowrobe. I'm an enrolled member of the Rosebud Sioux Tribe from South Dakota, and I also the Associate Director for Banner University Health Plans. So we're going to go ahead and start our circle.
Hi, everyone. I'm Melanie Soto. I'm the state director for the ARC of Arizona.
Hello, everybody. My name is Memory Don Longchase. I'm an enrolled member of the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe in Papalakota, and I'm the Domestic Violence Response Director for SWIC, formerly known as the Southwest Indigenous Women's Coalition.
I just walked right into this, didn't I? All right. Good afternoon. My name is Hetty Emery. I'm here participating in this conference for the first time, and I really love it. And I am a cultural counselor with Native American Connections.
Estongo, everyone. My name's Lauren Ashley, and I'm Yamasee from Florida. And I work with an awesome organization called Unity. So we help develop youth councils on and off reservations across the country.
Yate Noda Dene Nishle, Tabaish Bashkin, Kiani Dashje, Dorhonagana Dashanale. I'm Navajo. Those are my 4 clans. And I am an awesome grad student from Arizona State University. And I'll be graduating this May. Does she need the mic?
Hello. I am Tanya Harvey. I'm the Director of Tribal Engagement for SWIC. Same place as Memory. And she's going to talk a little bit more about what we do, so I'll leave that to her. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Joan McQuaid, and I'm with the Division of Developmental Disabilities in the Office for Individual and Family Affairs, and I do member advocacy.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is April Oliver. I'm with the White Man Apache Tribal Education Department Vocational Rehabilitation Program, and I'm the VR tech.
Skukta Shaninap Chikris and Stone Shudak, I'm Chikshancha, Abakiskikam, and the Tona Autumn Sanach Miragan. Hi, everyone. My name is Liz. I'm Tona Autumn, white Mexican, from Stone Shudak and the Chickacut district, and I am a grad student and will also be graduating this May from ASU in American Indian Studies.
Hi everyone, I'm Esperanza Tavena. I'm from the Pascuayaqui tribe, and I'm a social worker for Salt River, Pima, Maricopa Indian community. I'm glad to be here.
Hi everyone, my name is Kyla. I am in Cocopa and Quintan. I'm from Winter Haven, California. I currently work with Salt River. Right now we work with low-income families in financial crisis.
Hi everyone, my name is Asim Dietrich. I'm an attorney with the Arizona Center for Disability Law, and we focus on issues around abuse and neglect of people with disabilities, as well as issues around discrimination.
Hello everyone, I'm Jason Sneed. I'm from the ADDPC, or the Arizona Developmental Disabilities Planning Council. I'm the research and communication specialist there. I'm also a member of the Cherokee tribe, so nice to meet everyone.
Hello everyone, my name is Gina Griffiths. I am the Assistant Director of Community Inclusion for the World Institute on Disability, and that is not why I am here. I volunteer just felt like I needed to say where I work. I volunteer a lot with the Arizona Sexual Violence Network, and I'm so happy everyone's here to learn about us.
Thank you so much. And our panel here consists of the ARC, Gina's program, Asin's part of Gina's program, and who else did I leave out? I think that's it. Oh, and yes, Memory. These are going to all present, so I'll hand it off, and you can share information about your program. Oh, okay. So we'll take a look at this. These are our goals for our talking circle. We're going to discuss how assisting sexual violence victims or trying to prevent sexual violence is challenging. We're going to understand that more education on this topic among youth and adults in tribal communities is urgently needed. And we're also going to learn how the Arizona Sexual Violence and Disability Network is working to ensure every victim is seen, heard, believed, and supported. We're creating a safe space. We're talking about a difficult topic. We need a safe space. Many of us have experienced sexual violence in different ways. We need to remember you are not alone. Take a break anytime you need to. Put your pencils down and step outside if you need to take a break, because this can be something that's hard, difficult to talk about. If you need help, there's a counselor here today that you can talk to and get some support from. And this is our Arizona Sexual Violence and Disability Network. A couple colleagues and myself have started a tribal resource council. I'm not too sure what we're going to call ourselves, but it's going to be a landing page specific for tribal information and resources that are out there. So this is what we're doing here. Jason is here representing the Criminal Justice Work Group from the AZ Disability Planning Council. Asim Dietrich introduced himself from the Arizona Center for Disability Law. These are our work group leaders: School Abuse Prevention, Kiana Anaya, Bloom 365 Training and Prevention, Gina Griffith's work group, and really happy to be on her work group too. The World Institute on Disability, and Juliana Jorena, Self-Advocates Becoming Empowered. Our Trauma-Informed Care Access team consists of Josette Sullins, DHP Integrative Care, and James Metters, President's Committee for People with Intellectual Disability. This is our tribal resource group that just getting started, literally into the second or third week. I'm Rosebud Sue, and we'll be working with our tribal team to get that tribal landing page created. We get great assistance and support from Tori Glod and Leanne Davis, and these are the ARC's National Center on Criminal Justice and Disability. And I do want to say how they are reaching out to Indian country through this presentation to get more folks from Indian country involved. So the right people, right time is happening today.
And I'm going to share I'm going to try to go through these slides I have fast so we can get to the talking circle part of things. But the Arizona Sexual Violence and Disability Network is funded through a grant with the Arizona Developmental Disabilities Planning Council. So thank you to the council for making all of our work possible. We have been working since about 2019 to address issues of sexual violence and disability. And over the past year and a half, we've gone through a fairly rigorous strategic planning process to make sure that we're focusing on the right areas and on the right outcomes. And one of the things we knew, and the strategic planning process confirmed, is that we didn't have all the right people at the table. We needed more diverse representation. We're trying to reach the entire state, and we don't feel that we're doing that effectively. So as Dr. Yellowrobe said, that's one of the reasons we're here, is to make sure that we have representatives from all communities and that the wide variety of resources and supports that we're creating are accessible to all communities. So we need folks to help us do that. So our mission is to identify and respond to the critical needs of individuals with IDD and other disabilities who are at risk. And we know that folks who have disabilities are at a greater risk than folks who don't, and folks in minority populations are at a greater risk than those who don't. So folks who have disabilities and are in minority populations are at incredible risk, and that's what we want to mitigate. Our vision is that Arizonans live by a collective belief that everyone has value and deserves to live a life free from sexual violence. People with IDD, especially those who represent diverse backgrounds that are most represented in our state, need to be meaningfully included in our movement to end sexual violence in Arizona. I think I'm ready. Yeah, there's our values. So we identified our values as part of the process, and a core value for us is accessibility. That's both in terms of disability accessibility and all the various cultures that are represented in Arizona. It doesn't do us any good to create resources that are from a single perspective, because they won't be utilized by all the folks who need them. So that, of course, leads to diversity and intersectionality. It's important to us to make sure that we are meeting people where they're at and not trying to stuff people into boxes. Inclusion and leadership of people with disabilities is also very important to us. Self-advocates are our most valuable resource in sharing information that will ultimately be meaningful and impactful for the systems. I think there's one more. Oh, did I? Oh, okay.
Unless there's something else you want to say.
I'm needing to practice, so just go with it.
Yeah, I apologize for having my back to everyone. Okay, our goals, collaboration and recruitment, diverse representation, accessibility, messaging, and sustainability. So our network goals for 2023, diverse representation To continue building diverse representation, host or co-host in person or live events that highlight the intersection of sexual violence, disability, and cultural identity with a focus on peer-driven leadership. And we are working on putting together an event in September, and we're gonna talk about that a little bit more. Accessibility, prioritize accessibility of documents, tools, and training provided by the network. Consult with agencies focused on serving diverse cultures, as well as agencies led by persons with disabilities to ensure that the network meetings, resources, materials are accessible. Seek ongoing training and technical assistance from workgroup members and paid consultants to ensure a lens of cultural sensitivity and increased accessibility to persons with disabilities is prioritized in all aspects of the network. For our messaging, we want to create shared messaging within the network and across a broad array of professional fields that impact public attitudes and misperceptions about the IDD community and key misunderstandings about victims with disabilities. Consider how the network and its work groups can use shared messaging in their work with key target audiences to better inform people about this issue, recruit new members, and persuade new funders to support our cause. Develop and update an annual marketing plan for the network to guide messaging work for the future. So as far as sustainability, when we talk about that, we are going to be continually looking for new funders because this is a one-time grant that is going to be running out. And so in order to continue the network, we're going to have to find a more sustainable funding source. Oops, sorry. This thing's really sensitive. So we prioritize planning for the future by considering how each member of the network can play a role in supporting the sustainability of the network's mission and goals. And like I said, we're going to continue to seek that additional funding. So the network's outreach at conferences, like I said, we were planning that event in September 14th, and it's going to be our inaugural conference, Together We Are Stronger. Right now, we are planning for that to be September 14th at Ability 360, and registration should come out in the next couple of months and will be available on the network's website, which is hosted under the Arc of Arizona's website. So when you go to the Arc of Arizona's website, there's going to be a tab that you can click on, and it has all those resources that we were referencing in there, and you will also be able to register for the event. There's also a Self-Advocates online conference, Saturday, April 29th, and then the 19th Annual American Indian Disability Summit, which we are here today and wanted to be a part of. So our conference will have a fee. We haven't established that because we're still in contract negotiations. But that will be available online. Yeah. Oops. We're jumping through things. Our work group goals and accomplishments. So I'm going to hand this over to each one of our panelists here today that are representing those work groups so they can talk a little bit more about what they've been working on. Who would like to go first?
Should we go on the slide?
Yeah.
So Jason and I both are on the criminal justice work group. So we're looking at issues around protecting victims with disabilities who are going through the criminal justice system, and around basically making sure that they're protected while their perpetrator is also held responsible and prosecuted. So what we're focusing on really is training the whole system, prosecutors, judges, juries, around the credibility of the testimony of victims with disabilities and the fact that they should be believed. So we're discussing developing a training document around that. And then the other issue we're looking at is interviewing victims with disabilities and making sure that both law enforcement as well as prosecutors use a trauma-informed approach and they're not re-traumatizing a victim when they're interviewing that victim or also when that victim is testifying. Make sure that it's handled in a respectful way and people understand the needs of victims with disabilities. So we're also looking at developing training around that and collaborating with law enforcement agencies throughout the state, basically to disseminate that training and make sure it's being provided to every part of the system. And so we're right now we're about 10 members in the work group, and we meet once a month. So this is what we've discussed in our previous meeting was developing these training documents. And Jason, did you want to add anything?
No, you did well. You did a pretty good job, I'll add a little bit. Just if you'd like to join that group, because we need some people from the Native American community to, give some input as well. Please contact me at, just go to the ADDPC website or the Arizona Developmental Disabilities, the Planning Council's website, and you can see my email address there. And please contact me if you know anybody, prosecutor that's interested in this area, on the reservation or on any kind of Indian nation in Arizona. Please let me know, and so they can be part of our group, because we want to help everybody that we can. So anyway, that's all I got.
There's also a fillable form on the website page through the Arc of Arizona where you can click on it specifically to sign up to be a part of a work group.
I didn't know that. That's cool. And if you want us to make it easy, we could put out a piece of paper and you could put your email address, because all the work groups, I guess we didn't say this part, all the work groups would love to have you. You're invited to all of them, or the network. The network meets quarterly. Most of the work groups meet monthly-ish. So join us, because that's really what we want. I chair the training and prevention work group. So our focus is prevention. That's a lot harder. Training's a little bit easier to try to address. Good training will help with prevention. But what we have done to date is we researched and found all the trainings we could find, and we went through them to determine what seemed to meet our criteria of accessibility and what the content covered and how the content covered it. And we created a list of trainings we recommended. It was several years ago, so we're re-going through them all right now. So if you want to join, that's great. We could use the help. And then we'll update our list so that resource is available for people to find in it. We say this costs money, this is free, this is virtual, this is in person, these are the languages it's available in. So we try to just make that really easy for people. We're also looking at how to help people know that all of this is available, so getting the word out to any entities, educational entities, other groups, whoever out there needs to know we have these resources. So those are really our focuses in training and prevention. And I'm also going to cover the school abuse work group because Kiana couldn't be here and I had to write her goals down because I didn't know them. They have 3 goals. They are looking to rebuild their work group with a diverse representation. They kind of had a pause for a year because there wasn't anyone in a leadership role for that work group. But they're coming back strong, so if you have an interest or connections or you know other people interested in school abuse prevention, please connect with them. They are working to review relevant legislation that will support school communities and implement best practices. And they are looking at incident data to determine how to connect decision makers so that they can adopt best practice policy recommendations. So those are big goals. So we know we need to keep our schools safe. We need to keep our kids safe in schools, our young people, and have the right resources. So that's school abuse, and I'm going to pass it to Melanie.
So I'm going to talk about the trauma-informed care access. And I don't personally work on that work group, but I am familiar with what they've been trying to cover. And what you have to kind of think about is when somebody is a victim of sexual violence, there, especially in the disability community, there can definitely be that barrier in the believability of it, or the approach that is taken needs to be a little bit different. And so how do we develop best practices for doctors, ERs, first responders, and those types of things? So making sure that they know how to make things accessible for everyone who has a disability. And then we have our new tribal resources.
My colleague back there that just snuck in. No, I'm just joking. Cassandra, do you want to introduce yourself? Because we're right up.
Yeah, hi everyone, my name is Cassandra Pena. I'm a tribal liaison for Molina Healthcare, and I just joined the tribal resource group with Kimberly and my other colleague, Sean Sellers with United.
Right. So we did just have our first meeting. We did invite DES. We have a person from DES coming to our table and another person from DDD coming to our table to meet together. Anyone that wants to come and join us, go to the website, put your name in there, and you'll get resent back to us. Our tribal work group is, we created deliverables already without being told. So we're going to get the job done. Our first quarter deliverable is creating the landing page with tribal resources specific to meet the needs. You know, it's a difficult topic to talk about, so creating this landing page kind of makes it feel like it's just for you, you know, so you don't have difficult time reaching out to get those resources that you need. So we're going to work on that together. And we're also, our next quarterly deliverable will be creating possibly a monthly speaker series, monthly webinar series, get some talent out there from Indian country and bring some talent out of Indian country to other providers and folks that need them, including nursing homes, trainings for them. And then our third quarter, we're looking at approaching conferences, already got on board with Leanne, to present on conferences, rolling out our tribal resource work group, or tribal resource, I don't know what we're calling ourselves yet, but we're going to have a meeting on that next week. But I think that's about it, right, Cassandra? And then the fourth quarter, we're probably going to get together again and create what our strategic plan is to help implement and heighten the awareness of the resources that are there. So you'll be looking more, hearing more about this, and this is an excellent opportunity to give back to individuals with developmental disabilities and also to Indian country itself, because it is a very difficult topic to speak about. And, you know, intergenerational trauma happens. It's just having a lot of things to navigate through as a tribal person. So our resources are different, our needs are different, but so are our communities. Who do I pass this on to?
Hello, everybody. I feel like we just joined a work group. I feel like I saw an email about it yesterday. Yes? Okay. Yeah. Yes, I saw an email. Yes. So, okay. So I'm going to give a little bit of background about our organization, and then I can talk to you just a little bit about my experience when I was in direct service as a victim advocate and this intersection. But so SWIC, we are Arizona's statewide tribal domestic and sexual violence coalition. So we serve most of the 22 tribes of Arizona. There is a dedicated victim service organization in that community. Then we provide training, technical assistance, policy work, all those kinds of things. Our vision is to have safe indigenous communities. And our mission is to help increase the capacity of tribes to respond to sexual violence, sexual assault, domestic violence. We do this through training, technical assistance, policy advocacy. We do all of the work that we provide. We do through an anti-oppression framework. So since 2006, we work with tribes in Arizona on issues relating to safety for Native women, youth leadership, direct service provision, and for the LGBTQ+ and Two-Spirit community. And then, again, most recently, addressing violence through that anti-oppression framework. Um, so this is our service area. Like I said, we serve most of the 22 tribes of Arizona. Hopi, Zuni, Navajo, and Kaibab Paiute will participate with coalitions geographically closer to them. But these are our focus areas: domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, dating violence, sex trafficking, missing and murdered, and all of these, again, is through an anti-oppression framework. So that's us. We were until 2 weeks ago, we were a small but mighty team of 4, and starting next week, we will become a team of 7. Yeah, we're growing. We're governed by women from across Arizona's tribal communities, and we have a Native LGBTQ+ and Two-Spirit Advisory Council. They are comprised of 8 members from across the United States, and they are soon to become their own standalone national agency. They will be the Native LGBTQ+ and Two-Spirit Center for Equity. So we're sad to see them go, but we're glad that they're moving on. All right, so here is when I got word that I was going to be sitting on this panel. The first thing I did was try to do some research. I wanted to come with some stats and some information, and what I found was that there's very little. There's very little, and what I did find is that we are lumped right into this homogenous group when in reality we are 574 distinct, culturally, linguistically, spiritually, traditionally diverse nations. And so I didn't find anything really, even Arizona specific. So after that, we kind of pivoted. It's like, okay, let's collect some raw data. So we sent out a poll to our program membership, and again, our program membership is comprised of programs, domestic victim service agencies, rather, operating in Arizona's tribal communities, and just ask the question, are you seeing survivors or victims with disabilities in your programs? And the overwhelming response was no. We know that it's happening, right? We know that the statistics say 1 in 2 Native American women, 1 in 4 Native American men are experiencing sexual violence at some point in their lifetime, and that's likely a conservative number, right? That's a conservative estimate. And so add the intersection of vulnerability, disability, all of that, and so we know the numbers are there. We know it's happening. Those numbers, the response that we got from programs happening that are operating in Arizona's tribal communities isn't indicative of lack of incidents, right? We know that it's happening. What it is indicative of is that they are not reaching out for services. And so what do we do with that information? So we can look at what we do know. We know that 67% of sexual assault cases are declined for prosecution by the U.S. Attorney. And within that 67%, how many? There isn't any data to support this particular population. But we also know that children, Native children, are removed from their families of origin and their communities at much higher rates than the national average. And we also know that, so if we start looking at all these different areas, these things kind of become clear, at least a blueprint for why reporting isn't happening. And so when we go from there, we know now that we have an area to really delve into more deeply. Why is this happening? Why are they not reaching out for services? Is it lack of awareness? Is it lack of training on the part of service providers? And so that's really what we are going to focus on, I think, in the next calendar year. We really want to make this a focus because we've always wanted to have this a representative from this population at our table, and I think now we have the ability to bring them. So we could talk about, according to the Department of Justice, violence in tribal communities can be as much as 10 times higher than violence in non-tribal communities. Native Americans are 2.5 times more likely to experience sexual assault crimes compared to all other races. 1 in 3 Native women report having been raped during her lifetime. So 70% of non-Native perpetrators commit at least 70% of the violence against Native Americans. And 56.1% of American Indian and Alaska Native women have experienced sexual assault. when we're talking about why people aren't reporting, it may be that they know somebody who has reported and nothing has happened. And what that is saying is that the unspoken message and all of that is that you can perpetrate sexual violence on us with impunity. And there's data to support that that is true. Jurisdictional issues make it complicated in reporting and prosecuting and whom is responsible for taking the report. When I was looking at the stats for the declination of sexual assault cases, one of the things that we found is that there is a pie chart that explains why the overwhelmingly reason why these 67% of cases are being declined is because lack of evidence or insufficient evidence. But if the investigating law enforcement agency is the FBI and they're 2 states away working on something else, and now you've missed that that 120-hour window, that 5 days, that would be a reason to decline, right? And then there's a small sliver, and I haven't found anybody who can give me an actual answer. One of the reasons for declination is a very small percentage, but one of the reasons is it is in direct conflict with federal intentions. The feds have this whatever program, intentions, they're moving in what direction, and to prosecute somebody who's been harmed is counter to that, and so it doesn't happen. And so so when we talk about that, that's just, blanket, that's just us as human beings. And so when we add these other vulnerability factors, we can imagine that the issues are that much deeper, that these things are happening, and maybe there isn't any lack of awareness on resources. Where do they go? When I was in direct service, this was the mainstream, I come from the mainstream movement in Arizona. When I was in direct service, I accompanied a blind survivor to a medical forensic exam, and she was reporting her sexual assault, and the law enforcement officer kept talking to me. And I'm like, why are you talking? I'm in here in support. Please talk to her. And I had to say it 3 or 4 times before she finally got frustrated and said, I don't want to do this anymore, and walked out. And so when we think about, that's one instance, but we think that's probably not an isolated instance. If there's a survivor who maybe has intellectual disabilities. I had one of my advocates that I manage ask me, well, then who's my client? And I'm like, the survivor, the person who experienced the sexual assault is your client. But that highlighted an area that we needed more training on, just agency-wide. So I think this is a big deal with what we want to achieve, and I think that we've highlighted a huge gap in service that we will be addressing very soon, and hopefully being part of this work group, as well as making sure that we are, giving just kind of basic education, using person-first language and things like that. I think there is a huge issue, but I'm happy to be at the table, guys. I'm happy to be here. This is an area I feel passionate about, and so I'm here also to learn from you all. We can talk a little bit about Arizona's tribal communities. I think I said it. How many tribes are in Arizona? It wasn't supposed to be a pop quiz moment, guys. We do not have the same cultures and traditions. We don't speak the same language. And tribal courts, tribal police departments, et cetera, they're all very different. One of the things that has also been highlighted is if there isn't language in a particular tribal code that deals with this, a person who's vulnerable, then is it a crime? If it's not in code, it's not a crime, right? Even though it is. So that's another issue that we see across Arizona. So working with cultures and traditions are different. I think that we have established that. Use of traditional medicine and healing ceremonies are going to be diverse. Everybody has their own cultural way or their own traditional way of ceremony, of prayer, of healing, of incorporating those practices into their healing. Family is a part of everything. When a crime occurs, it doesn't only hurt the victim and the survivor, but the family as a whole, and by extension, the community. Language is different within each tribe. We knew that. If language is unknown, finding interpreters is imperative. This was another one. When I worked in shelter, and we had somebody who only spoke ASL, and there was not a single person on staff that could speak ASL. That was another highlighted a gap in our service and how we provide service to survivors. Communication can be different. So some of us were raised not to look elders in the eye. Some of us are more comfortable with, standing with our arms crossed. My kids tell me, they laugh at me, and they say I got my native face on, and it's not really a mean mug, but it's kind of a focused look, I think, but I guess I look very native. That's what my kids tell me. And then we talked a little bit about jurisdiction. Jurisdiction is complicated. There are only 3 tribes in Arizona exercising special criminal jurisdiction, which means they can prosecute a non-native who perpetrates a crime onto an enrolled member of that tribe. But that's 3 out of 22. So the investigating party, yes? Sure. So it is Salt River, Pasquayaki, and Gila River, right? Yeah. Yay. There's criteria in order to be able to do that. Some of our more rural tribes, maybe those without a casino, lack revenue and lack the seed money, if you will, to get their criminal justice system up to standard to even be able to access these funds and to be able to access those. The remaining are left to the federal government as the prosecuting party, and the FBI as the investigating party. And so there's just a lot of issues when it comes to jurisdiction. This is some of our information. I know we said 1 in 2 women, 1 in 4 men are experiencing some kind of sexual violence in their lifetime. 28% of men have experienced sexual violence in their lifetime. And sexual violence, I think, across the board, we tend to think of, when we talk about sexual violence, we tend to think penetrative rape, but there is so many other acts that fall under this umbrella of sexual violence. I think that's another area that, we all are kind of under different levels of awareness on what these topics are. I do this work, so I've been kind of delved into it in the past 12 years. So yeah, that was a lot. That's where we are. And then, is this mine? Oh, okay. All right, so how can we outreach to the disability community within our tribal communities about this topic? I think a big one to start is that we lack a universal kind of language. What does this mean? What does intellectual versus physical mean? What does sensory disability mean versus intellectual? I think that's a great place to start so that we all have kind of a baseline foundational knowledge. But I think that was a question for everybody. I'm answering it, my bad. But yeah, so I think this is part of why we're here today, is to kind of answer some of these questions. Yes, ma'am.
I'm part of a women's support group with the Spinal Cord Injury Association of Arizona, and so we have a women's support group where we do talk about women being, like disabled women being vulnerable to. So we have had conversations, but we're not all of us are native. Like I think there's 1 or 2 of us are native, but there's other non-natives in the organization, in the support group. But we do talk about like our handicap placard and how I was telling them I wanted to get a placard on my plate, and they said don't get it on your plate, get the one that hangs on your window. So when you do park and you're not in your car, they'll just see the placard. But when you drive away and you're driving, you can remove the placard, so you're not advertising or showing that you're a disabled person in your vehicle, in your face, so you're not being stopped, so you're not being targeted, so you're not being planned to be attacked. And so they recommended the placard that you can remove from your car.
I see.
That was our safety discussion.
Yeah, I would never have thought of that. Thank you for bringing that up. But I think that, and I don't think that I'm an outlier here. There is still so much that I need to learn, and how do we practice cultural safety, and how do we practice inclusion? Yeah. Yeah, and what are we doing to help advocates, to help the survivors that they're working with who've already been harmed? And so that's just intervention. Now let's talk about prevention and what that looks like. And we can be here all day. So, so how about we give or share examples of outreach strategies to people with disabilities within tribal communities, like cross training. I think this is a huge one. I think, again, like we were talking, just kind of providing that baseline foundational knowledge, which I will be the first to admit, I still need more training on, to be able to feel like I can and confidently disseminate the information that I'm learning. I can give what I know now. What I know is I will readily admit it, I think woefully inadequate to really make sure that the services that I am trying to provide are inclusive and I'm not accidentally offending anybody. And so if me, who's done this work for well over 11 years, am still struggling, I can imagine a new advocate or maybe somebody who doesn't do this work, finding some kind of common language. Provide information about Native tribes and how they best receive services and how can this impact the community of people with disabilities who live in tribal communities. So we know that they're there. We know that they exist. And then we talked about why the reporting, jurisdictional issues, all of these things that are happening. I think we know all of these outlying and peripheral issues can really kind of provide us an idea of why reporting isn't happening, why they're not seeking services. There is an inherent power imbalance. When somebody comes to us and they disclose what's happening, first thing we got to do is make a report. If, that reporting agency, DCS or CPS, APS, if this is happening, are they going to remove them? Are they going to go to a worse place? Are they going to be able to stay in the community? I mean, there's just a lot of different issues. And then ways to be culturally sensitive when trying to address this topic. This is one that I practice when we talk about cultural safety. It's just recognizing that the culture is important and being respectful and not assuming. When I'm in different spaces, I was in a non-Native space doing a training on addressing and responding to violence in Native communities. And one of the things I first said is that maybe we don't want to share our 23andMe. If you did a 23andMe and you have this, because what happens, and this happens to me as a trainer at the state level, I was telling somebody this very same thing about practicing cultural sensitivity, and I said, when somebody is coming to you and they're sharing arguably the worst experiences of their life, right? And you find out they're Native, maybe you don't want to share your 23andMe, right? Maybe that's not the appropriate time. And maybe, just maybe, what happened to me, no sooner had I done that part of the training than a lady said, "Can I talk to you?" And I said, "Yeah." And she's like, "Look at my 23andMe." And she's like, "Where do I go to find out how to get enrolled?" And I was like, "Did you not just hear what I was saying?" I don't know. I'm not from that tribe, And so that, I think, is one way. But when we talk about people with disabilities, how do we address them? How do we make sure that we are using person first language? Thank you. Because that's not a defining factor of somebody, right? So that would be just some areas that I would say suggesting. But I'll leave it up to you. You all are, I think, maybe more experts than me.
So yeah, using all of these questions up here, I'm gonna go back now to our work groups. And what we're really looking for from everyone here in the room is some input on those questions for the work groups. Some thoughtful things that they should be considering. I'll find it here eventually. So they can take it back and put it into practice and include all of that information in there. So when we were talking about that, did anything pop in your mind that you think would benefit any of these work groups?
Okay. The thing that spoke out to me was the trauma. And when you're talking about sexual assault, sexual violence, especially when it comes to Natives, we've dealt with trauma historically, like historical trauma, triggers, as just our minority, our unique minority. So when you do bring up sexual violence and you bring up trauma, we're going to shell up and we're going to lash out and we're going to put up our guard. So it's definitely, we don't want to be re-triggered. So I think the best way to handle that situation would be let them come to you, but also when they do come to you, you give them opportunities, resources, pathways that they can take initiative to act on, saying, hey, you can call this hotline, or you can go to this website, or you can go to the ER and they can do a swab test, or you give them the resources and let them take initiative, but you also got to educate them on there's a time limit of things. So like getting swabbed if you're sexually assaulted and there's penetration, there's a time limit for those tests to happen, and if they don't happen in a certain time limit, then all that data and all that lab work is pretty much like it didn't happen. And so in a lot of men and women that get sexually assaulted, they tend to clean themselves because they want to get all that off of them, and that gets rid of evidence. And instead of like still having it in them and still having it on them, and then going into the emergency room with it still on them, it's hard because you want to wash it off, you want to forget it happened, you want to erase it from your memory. And so giving them the knowledge, saying, hey, you have a window of opportunity to get tested and do the lab work and do the safety kit and the trauma kit within, I think it's 24 hours in the emergency room, to give them that education so they're aware of it, even if, as prevention or treatment, but letting them know like, hey, this is an option and it's their right to choose whether they're going to do it or not. But when it comes to Native Americans, it's on eggshells because we're trauma no matter what. And so, yeah, I would just say give them options, give them resources, give them the education, give them the opportunities, and say, hey, this is what A, B, and C you can choose from and do, but we're here to help and support. Because we get a lot of first responders that come out, and most of them are firemen or ambulance or police, and they tend to be like, rush, 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 hurry, 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 we gotta go, we gotta go. And when you deal with a trauma person, it's best to like calm them down, to communicate, and because their emotions are high, they're triggered, they're very, unstable, and so they don't need that whole rush, 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 we gotta go, we're getting another call, are you going or not? And that just kind of makes them shell up and back down and say, nope, never mind. Like, I don't want to talk about it, I don't want to deal with it, forget it. And then that kind of shuts the process down. So that's what I would recommend, is having the resources available and then give them the opportunity so they can take initiative going forward.
Thank you for sharing.
I guess I just have a question / suggestion. Just like with all the rehab facilities that are, just all over especially like in the valley right now, as far as training, like, is that like a priority for people that run those facilities to maybe even like be able to mandate them to take training such as, whatever is provided? And also, I, just from a personal experience, my niece, she's a victim, and I got custody of her. I fought for her to get to a level 1 facility, and it was really frustrating just even dealing with my own tribe about, getting her help. And, she aged out from where she was at. But, with all the help she was able to gather and just get in that place, she said, I still need help. I still don't, I'm not ready to go home. So I said, okay, so we all worked together and got her to a facility, and she's actually at the facility now. Still, she just turned 18 in December. So tomorrow's like the first day I'm actually going to see her. So I'm just like so thankful to be able to be here right now to get all this information, I'm going to see her. It's been like a year since I've seen her. And, I just want to tell her, hey, you know what, there's still these resources out there. There's help if you want it. And, she's just like one person that I know personally in a facility, in a group home, that is affected by this. And, she's not that far from home, but she's not at home. But she doesn't feel safe enough. She doesn't feel ready to go home. And I don't want her to go home. So I'm glad that I'm here and that I'm able to find out about this. So that way tomorrow when I see her, you know, in the place she's at, you know, hey, you know, there's these people here that, you know, if you get any more victims like my niece, you know, I want you guys to know that there's resources, and, you know, please make sure that you guys also educate yourselves on, you know, the people that you're dealing with when it comes to Native Americans, and just like, you know, what she said, the historical trauma that's just already there. So I guess, you know, just being able to train people like that in those types of facilities would be very beneficial, because they're already there for a reason too.
Thank you for sharing. I hope you have a good day tomorrow with your niece. Yeah. Um, I think that finding in both of these experiences, and within my own as well with my family, I find that talking about sex as a topic, period, is very taboo, right? And so I know I've experienced within my family not believing victims and stuff like that because of the ideas around sexual assault and victims. I think a lot of it has to do with I don't want to feel that pain, because there's already trauma that is there, and to know that somebody that you're supposed to protect is not being protected is probably really hard to deal with. But I guess my question is, or I think it's so hard for a broader network like you guys to tackle, but like helping families, like talking about sex and talking about sexual assault, so that there is a, like you said, common language within our homes, because I think that's a big thing too, that like we're not safe in our home. And so and I think that also has to do with being really culturally aware of each individual tribe and each individual family and their beliefs, and what is going to be good measures of protection and medicine for them in talking about that and getting the family to talk about that. So that's all I really have to share. Thank you.
I would just say to possibly make these resources available to stateside domestic violence shelters, because I'm also a grad student. I did my internship out in Chandler. And a lot of times we had different tribal members from without Arizona coming in. And, you know, I would meet with them, I would talk with them, and I'd be like, well, what is your tribe doing? You know, have you reached out for services with them? And they'd be like, oh, you know, there's a stigma, I don't want to go back to them. So then I would reach out to the administration that's at the shelter and be like, you know, what resources do you have for tribal communities? And they'd be like, well, we don't have anything, you know, we're stateside, we don't really deal with tribal communities. So I would say maybe just like provide an outreach, because I think there's about maybe like 18, no, I don't even think it's like 18. I think within Maricopa County, I think there's only like about 6 or 7 domestic violence shelters. So that'd be my recommendation.
Yeah, I used to work at one of them. I got the same thing when a native survivor would come in, they would kind of chop me up and be like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And then even as an intern, I mean, you know, I was doing my best to be like, okay, well, you can do this, or you can do that, do this. And then I worked at UMOM for a couple of years, and even being there, there was no tribal resources available.
I don't mind. I've been sitting all day, so.
I would agree with everything that's been said. I think one thing, I deal a lot with youth. So youth have their own way of, you know, addressing things and how they want to be spoken to and about. And one feedback that I was really interested in was their preferred language. I saw that. And a lot of times there's a huge hesitancy and shame, not only for what we would call victims, but the people who have caused harm to others. And a lot of times, you know, that's not a focus in a lot of tribal communities, but there's a lot of shame and it can lead to impacting others, right? And so even as a community, I think that's a huge unspoken area that we, as people, we love people, we support people who make wrong decisions as well. And so not only have youth come forward and talked about that not liking the word victim, and I know and legally there are specific, offender victim labels, but the idea of people who cause harm and people who have received harm, making it a little easier to talk about and to be open, and that like generationally in my family, we've had people who have both received harm and have given harm to other people. So it's like, how do you, because there's a lot of things that I think people carry unspoken, and they want to be a part of the solution, and they want to be a part of protecting our families. But like you said, there's a lot of shame too in the families of like, oh, we failed, or oh, we didn't stop this generation. Like, how did I let it happen to another generation? Because there's a lot of pressure of like, we're gonna stop this cycle, it's gonna end with me, sort of thing. So I think just speaking openly and acknowledging that there is shame, but that you don't have to be, and that it's okay to talk about, and that the more we talk about it, the better it's gonna be. So, yeah.
Sorry. I'd have to say I really strongly agree with all that has been shared. And I don't know, I'm just sitting here thinking like, I think there's some work being done. And I do believe that a lot of our people sometimes, especially in tribal communities, are, shuffled just from one department to the next, so I think it would be really helpful to maybe, I think the people who would really come to support something like this and support change in the long run are going to be the people who are advocates, people who work directly with the families and the victims. I really believe that, people maybe who work in shelters and, I really believe that. And because I think what happens is that, like we say, pretty soon it's invalid information, the event has happened past, and, our judicial system are not addressing these, and it's not imminent, and cases are just being shuffled back, and pretty soon they're forgotten. And I really do believe that part of that too is that, being culturally sensitive, yes, is a very important part, because I think coming from the outside, you're going to probably be dealing with a lot of shame, a lot of guilt on part of maybe perhaps the people who are parents or grandmothers or whoever, and sex is a big taboo, and growing up not talking about sex, or feelings is going to be a big part of this as well, so I say cultural sensitivity as well, is pretty much, like realizing that there's stigma. There's also going to be anger, there's going to be fear. I believe that some of our victims, or where these events or these incidents have occurred, people are afraid of other family members, being angry with them, blaming them for sending their relative off to jail or incarceration, so I believe that also has a lot of drawback, and gossip, yeah, that's also can be very wounding as well. So thank you.
And I just want to say real quick too, in our work for SWIC, we've been in existence since 2006. And part of our work is to go out and provide training and education to not only service providers, but for the community as a whole. So we work with almost the 22 tribes, and I say almost because some we haven't really connected to because of the border coalitions that have gone into those areas. But part of what you are all stating, and we always try to bring in or connect with our non-native partners, because we know that they too serve our native survivors. So we talk about all of the who we are as Indigenous people, and how we have all these different languages and cultures and traditions that are different, and that you need to understand when you are working with Native survivors, that it is going to look different than what, you know, one who is going through the Western, what is it, Western, yeah, so, and to the point of where you're stating in regards to including or thinking about or even talking about those who do harm, you know, it's true, because those who do harm could be our kids, our uncles, our aunts, our, you know, tribal council, part of our leadership. You know, how do we, is jail the only option? You know, and in our cultures and tradition, it's very important to, you know, lead them in that way, because then we don't want to throw them away in jail, because that doesn't work. And so, you know, it was hard for a while for SWIC, because we were at one point just focusing on women, but we gone to being inclusive and looking at all our relatives and helping them how to talk about sexual violence, domestic violence, because yes, it is still, even LGBTQ community, that is still not addressed in some communities. But I just wanted to point out, but we've been addressing that within all of our tribes, as well as to our non-native partners, about who we are as indigenous people, and taking a look at, you know, helping those who do harm too. But we are having a 40-hour training on just victim advocacy coming up in April, and part of that, one of the presentations is about talking about who does the harm and how do we help them. So anyway.
And I just wanted to expand on that a little bit. And one of the things that I have worked hard to focus on as well, and it's difficult getting the conversation started. Those of us that has worked in the advocacy space for any length of time, you know, if we start by believing we are there, we are victim-centered, survivor-centered, participant-centered. And so by extension, right, we tend to demonize those that commit harm. We know a couple of things about domestic sexual violence. It's a learned behavior. And so when we talk about decolonizing and kind of reclaiming the agency of our own safety, that's a part of it. How do we honor the victim and somebody who commits harm and still hold them accountable, and with the idea of public safety in mind? And there's no easy answer. There's no readily identifiable path on how to do that. But it is an area that we feel strongly about, because, you know, I know the statistic says 70% of sexual violence is perpetrated by non-natives, and that could very well be true. But again, I think that's us as a people being lumped into one category. And so, you know, in this study, it doesn't say who the participants were. Was it a sample from all tribal communities across Indian country? We don't know. But what we do know is that is a issue that is happening. It has continued to happen. You know, when you talk about being ashamed of talking about sex, you know, I don't believe that was our traditional way once upon a time. That was the effects of colonization. That was the effects of the boarding schools and I'm not knocking Christianity or anything, but that's where that shame started to come in. And then all of the sexual violence, and it did become intergenerational. So I don't remember what my point was with that. Sorry. So I'm going to hand it back over to Molly.
So I just wanted to wrap it up, because we are going to become, it's actually after 2:30. Sorry, I'm invading your break here. But I did just want to show you guys our updated website that launched last week. It's, like I said, hosted on the Arc of Arizona's website. Talks about who we are. There's an amazing video that we did with James Metters. He's a self-advocate, and he's also a survivor. And so he is a great speaker, and he's very powerful and moving, and we feel like we do need to hear more from survivors and their input in order for us to have our work going forward have meaning and purpose. And I just wanted to make sure that you guys knew that that was available here. It covers a lot of the things that we talked about today, how to get more involved. It also has our executive team here. It also has our meeting dates. So it's a great place to go for all those meeting dates if you are available and you want to pop into one of the network meetings and just check it out and see what it is and see how you can help. And we have our event flyer for the conference that we're going to be doing in September. And then here is all of our resources that we've been talking about today. So those are readily available online. If you guys come across another resource that you would like to have included in there, feel free to email us. My email and the ARC's email is here. I'm the one hosting the site, so I can get it up there same day. Our web guy is great. I go out, I'm on speed dial. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we are wrapping it up.
I wanted to say, when we do talking circles, we always have water. Renee, would you want? Water is sacred. Tomorrow. Is this for her? If we all sat around